And Israel has deceived itself for too many damn years, thinking that they can just get away with this evil. They are not going to get away with it. They're not going to get away with the evils that they have done. And when the world sees these photos of starving children, when they see these photos that look like they came out of Auschwitz, the world looks at Israel and says, you know what, Israel? When you get your comeuppance, when the sky over you is darkened, we will not pity you. That is going to be the fate of Israel. More than 270 dead from starvation. Some 2,000 people shot to death while trying to obtain food. Thousands of children under the age of 5 suffering from severe acute malnutrition. Tens of thousands of children in the same age group, age 5, suffering from acute malnutrition. And more than 500,000 people who are forced to endure entire days without eating. And amazingly, you have Israeli soldiers who have enough soul and enough heart to come out and expose these evils. And Mike freaking Huckabee, who is a Christian, well, he's not really a Christian, but he comes in the name of the cross. He comes in the name of Jesus, who said to love thy neighbor. And he says, oh no, these aren't happening. The Jews who are exposing this evil are more Christian than Mike Huckabee. So you have a collaboration between American Christian Zionists and Jewish fanatics and extremists. That's what this is. There's a whole conspiracy happening here. They will actually make excuses for war crimes as long as the war crimes are done by Israel. If they build this third temple and they have their Messiah, and this Messiah is going to kill a red heifer, this is not going to be Jesus. This Messiah is going to be a Messiah who the hardliners in Israel are going to worship and revere and follow. And Christians, you have people who are claiming to be followers of Christ, wanting to usher in the rise of an antichrist. So I have been reading this article published by Haaretz. I have read most of it, and it is about the famine that is ongoing in Gaza, and it is just a complete and utter nightmare. It's horror. Complete horror. It's an absolute dystopian nightmare. It is hellish. It is nightmarish. It is just pure evil. What is happening? Pure, sinister activities are being done to Gaza by these evil people who claim to follow the God of Israel. Well, let me just read to you guys some excerpts from this article just to give you guys an idea. Just to give you guys an idea as to how horrific it is in Gaza. So here we go. Bayan Sakor is lying on a bed. Her mother is supporting her, holding her head. She's 10 years old, very thin, frail, and weak. Her body is limp. She weighs 17 kilograms, 37 pounds. A 10-year-old weighing 37 pounds. That's the weight of a 4-year-old, says Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah, director of the pediatric department in Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. She's not suffering from any disease, only malnutrition. Now, this is very important to keep in mind here. Why? Because you have these Zionist psychopaths. You have these Hospara agents who are utterly demonic and sinister. And they will come out and they will say things like, well, actually, no, these kids, they're not really dying from starvation. No. You see, they have some sort of a pre-existing illness, and that's why they look so emaciated. That's why you can see their rib cages. That's why you can see that their arms are bone thin, and all you can see is skin and bones. You see, they have illnesses. Well, you know, in America, we have all sorts of illnesses. All over the world, all over the first world, there are all sorts of illnesses. In Israel, there are all sorts of illnesses. You don't see kids looking like this. You don't see 10-year-olds weighing 37 pounds. And the reason why she's so ill, the reason why she's suffering is because she is malnourished. It's not because she has some sort of a pre-existing condition. And it says here that 2 months ago, She weighed 24 kilograms, the girl's mother says. Dr. Al-Fada shows Bayan's protruding ribs, her scrawny hands. And you have these Zionists, you have these hospitalists, these propagandists for Israel, agents of the synagogue of Satan, who will say, well, these kids, they just have pre-existing diseases. What type of a disease makes you look like you're about to starve to death? And why do we see so many cases of this in Gaza? The article goes on to say the tour of Nasser Hospital in the southern part of Gaza lasted about an hour. Al-Fada went from bed to bed while another member of the hospital staff held the camera. We saw children whose bodies were blighted by hunger, with bones jutting out. Their hair had turned yellow or fallen out. Their faces were wrinkled and their abdomens bloated. Their bodies were limp. Many had marks on their skin. Some looked totally apathetic. By means of this and our video tours, as well as in the conversations with physicians and members of humanitarian organizations, we were able to document the current condition and, when possible, the medical history of some 50 children. So Haaretz, God bless their work. They do really good work. They did a number of virtual tours of various medical centers in Gaza because legitimate journalists can't enter Gaza. They're not allowed to enter Gaza. Now, they'll allow some citizen of Sodom like Douglas Murray to enter Gaza, and Israel will say, you see, look, we have journalists. We allow journalists. We have a free press. We have Douglas Murray. Yeah, you brought in this servant of Sodom who worships Israel and who is a member of the synagogue of Satan to enter Gaza to lie for you. And by the way, I just want to add something about this whole thing. Israel is getting very, very desperate. Oh, yes. Israel is getting very, very desperate because recently Israel got some servant of Sodom, another servant of Sodom, not Douglas Murray this time. They got some servant of Sodom to tell people that Israel is not behind this famine.
If I were Israel, I wouldn't even provide matching socks to Gaza. But here's all the aid that y'all claim doesn't exist. Now walk with me.
Israel hires this guy to go lie for Israel. That's how desperate Israel is right now. They're hiring this guy, this jokester. He's not. And then I saw someone say, oh, look, there's a journalist in Gaza who's talking about why the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, is great. And for those of you who don't know, the GHF, or the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, are around 4 aid distribution sites that were established by the United States and Israel, and they use paid private contractors. And Palestinians, by the thousands, have been shot to death while trying to get food at these aid distribution centers. So now Israel is trying to cover up for it because, for so long, the hospitalists were saying, oh, these are all lies. Palestinians being shot outside of these aid distribution centers or as they're trying to get food. Oh, that's a bunch of lies. Hollywood lies. Palestinians are liars. You can't trust them. And then the reports came out from Israeli soldiers who were there outside of these distribution centers. And these soldiers said, yeah, we were given orders to open fire on innocent people who were just there to get food. So now Israel is on third gear. They're trying to cover up for their crimes. And they hire this clown, this jokester, this servant of Sodom. And of course, this guy came to Israel. Of course he arrived to Israel to lie for Israel. Of course he did. Of course, he gets a chance to travel to Tel Aviv, one of the biggest city for the Republic of Sodom in the world. What do you think this guy was doing in Israel, in Tel Aviv? Journalism? He sure as hell wasn't doing journalism. It's just so sickening. It's so evil what these people are doing. Anyway, let's read some more of this article. This was written by 2 Israeli journalists. So before you start saying, oh, these are all just Palestinian lies, this is written. These words were written by 2 Israeli journalists. And they wrote, anyone who claims that the images of starvation in the Gaza Strip are a result of acute genetic or other diseases and not due to a grave shortage of food are lying to themselves. They're not only lying to themselves, they're lying to others. It reminds me of that verse from St. Paul where he says that they are those who are deceived while deceiving others. You can't deceive people without deceiving yourself. Deceiving others begins with self-deception. Now you could say, well, they are people who know that they're lying when they're lying. Yes, that's true. But those people still have deceived themselves that they're always going to get away with it. And Israel has deceived itself for too many damn years, thinking that they can just get away with this evil because they're not going to get away with it. They are not going to get away with it. They're not going to get away with the evils that they have done. And when the world sees these photos of starving children, when they see these photos that look like they came out of Auschwitz, the world looks at Israel and says, you know what, Israel? When you get your comeuppance, when the sky over you is darkened, we will not pity you. That is going to be the fate of Israel. They are those who say, oh, Israel will never be defeated. You know, this whole idea of we're never going to be defeated said every single empire that fell. The Roman Empire lasted for a very long time. It fell. Mongolians were once the most feared people on earth. The Mongolians fell. The Aztecs thought they were going to live forever. They thought they were always going to be around. Why do you think they were so nonchalantly just sacrificing all their neighbors? They didn't give a damn about repercussions. They were sacrificing people all the time. They sacrificed on average 25,000 people a year. They had entire centers of butchery. They had entire human sacrifice platforms where they would butcher somewhere around 2,000 people a day. And you ask yourself, how does an empire act so evil, thinking that they're going to get away with it? Well, that you answered your own question. They thought they were going to get away with that. And they didn't, because you know why? The Spaniards entered Mexico, and then all the tribes that were sick and tired of getting butchered and enslaved by those demon worshippers, the Aztecs, joined forces with the Spaniards. And the Spaniards, alongside hundreds of thousands of native warriors, destroyed the Aztec Empire. And no one pitied the Aztec Empire because it was so damn evil. All right? It really is that simple. And some hospitalist recently put a comment on my channel, and he said, Israel's never going to fall. Turkey can come after us. Turkey's going to lose. We'll beat everyone. And then he said, we beat the Egyptians. We beat the Syrians. We beat the Jordanians. We beat the Houthis. Yeah, you literally just listed a bunch of weak-ass countries. And the Houthis aren't a country, but they're not very strong. They're easily defeated by a first world country. You just listed a bunch of weak-ass countries. Syria, weak. Jordan, weak. Egypt, weak. Weak-ass countries. Turkey's not a weak-ass country. And as I've said many times, Turkey is right smack next to Israel now. And Turkey is planning on building their giant trade route directly from Turkey into Central Asia, because Turkey has grand plans and aspirations to create a pan-Turkic empire consisting of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Central Asia. Yeah. And Central Asia has a limitless amount of uranium, and we all know what uranium is used for, to make nuclear bombs. So that is quite a dark foreshadowing for the fate of Israel. Our investigative report seeks to put faces to the people behind the data as of today. More than 270 dead from starvation. Some 2,000 people shot to death while trying to obtain food. Thousands of children under the age of 5 suffering from severe acute malnutrition. Tens of thousands of children in the same age group, age 5, suffering from acute malnutrition. And more than 500,000 people who are forced to endure entire days without eating. Now you could say, Ted, why are you so focused on Israel? Why don't you focus on Sudan? I mean, right now, there's a war going on in Sudan and there's starvation. You know what? You're absolutely right. There is a horrific humanitarian crisis that is happening in Sudan. But here's the thing. We don't have a lobby that's pushing for America to bless Sudan's war crimes in the name of Christianity. That's the difference. We don't have this giant political apparatus in the United States where a bunch of politicians will trip on each other's toes to kiss the ass of Sudan. No one's kissing Sudan's ass. I'm sure there is a Sudanese lobby, right? In America, this is the empire of the world. There's a lobby for every ethnic group in the United States. I'm sure there is a Sudanese lobby, but the Sudanese lobby ain't shit in compared to the pro-Israel lobby. We don't have entire massive church meetings, evangelical Christian church meetings, where members of Congress join forces with evangelical religious leaders to talk about how much they love Sudan. But we have plenty of those for Israel. We have an entire movement in this country that wants to see the construction of the third temple. And all of the Christians who support this third temple insanity are all members of the non-denominational denomination, right? Oh, we're non-denominational. Oh, that's your denomination. Anytime I hear someone say, I'm non-denominational, I say, oh, that's your denomination. Your denomination is non-denominational. Anyway, it's just Starbucks Christianity at the end of the day. But there's a very evil twist, and that evil twist is they will actually make excuses for war crimes as long as the war crimes are done by Israel. Because according to these people's religion, it's not Christianity, by the way, it's sure as hell is not my religion, but according to these people's religion, we have to support Israel no matter what. And that includes covering up for war crimes and atrocities, and that's why Mike Huckabee does what he does. That's why Mike Huckabee goes to Gaza and says everything is fine. There is no cases of Israelis just opening fire on starving innocent people as they're trying to get food. Nope, that doesn't happen. Now, Mike Huckabee, he was a pastor, big evangelical, Zionist, evil, malicious, sinister individual. He's a son of the devil, son of Belial, to use a biblical term. Mike Huckabee did say, well, there have been cases where Palestinians have charged at Israeli soldiers, and the Israeli soldiers will give warnings, and they'll fire rounds up in the air, and they'll give verbal commands for the crowd to stop, and the crowd doesn't stop, and then so they have no choice but to open fire.
Are civilians, Palestinian civilians, being shot at these humanitarian sites where food is being distributed by the IDF?
No, they are not being shot. There are all kinds of stories that they're just being massacred. The only time that has happened is when a large group overruns an Israeli position and they ignore verbal warnings, then they ignore shots fired in the air, and they ignore shots fired at the ground.
Completely ignoring the reports from IDF soldiers who said that they were given orders to open fire on Palestinians who were running away or who were trying to take cover. Completely disregarding the report from an Israeli soldier who said that he was given the order to fire on people who were absolutely no threat. And amazingly, you have Israeli soldiers who have enough soul and enough heart to come out and expose these evils. And Mike freaking Huckabee, who is a Christian, well, he's not really a Christian, but he comes in the name of the cross. He comes in the name of Jesus, who said to love thy neighbor and to do no evil. He comes in the name of a man who rode a donkey and lived a life of humility and who was murdered by Israel. And he says, oh no, these aren't happening. The Jews who are exposing this evil are more Christian than Mike Huckabee. The evil of this whole thing just knows no bounds. And so you have this cult in the United States that worships Israel. They want a third temple. And they're claiming that they love the Jews. They're claiming that they love Israel, but they're pushing for something that would be to Israel's demise. Because so these lunatics, people like the red heifer cattle rancher, and by the way, just to include that, there's this whole thing about a red heifer. They want to build a temple and then kill a red heifer. So they got some cattle rancher named Byron Stinson. I think that's his name. And this guy's a cattle rancher. They got this guy to breed a bunch of red heifers. Then they brought the red heifers through loopholes to Israel. Reportedly, and I read this, I don't know if it's true, but reportedly some of these fanatics actually killed one of these poor red heifers in Shiloh, Israel. Can't fully confirm it, but Charisma Magazine did an article on this not too long ago saying that this happened. So they're already, according to this report, they are already trying to prepare the way for this ritual sacrifice in the Third Temple. And there was a recent event, it happened this year, and it was organized by this thing called the Gathering for Prayer and Repentance. It's basically just a Israel worshiping cult. And it was filmed by CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, which is probably connected to the CIA in some way.
Are the red heifers necessary for the Messiah to come? Well, let me ask you something. When Israel was scattered for 2,000 years in the land, was it necessary that Israel, Judah, the tribe of Judah, the lion, would return to the land? Was that necessary? Is it necessary that on the temple mountain of God, that there be a temple that we worship him there, as it says in Micah 4? Is that necessary that we build the land? So the first step on the red heifers is that we are going to move towards building that temple. This is the first step, and it has to happen.
And they had a bunch of politicians, American politicians there. These were members of Congress. You had, I think his name was Mike Johnson. I think if that name is correct, that guy was there. And then there was also a member of the Knesset. This member of the Knesset is connected to Mr. Smotrich. Mr. Smotrich is an evil Jewish fanatic hardliner. So you have a collaboration between American Christian Zionists and Jewish fanatics and extremists. That's what this is. There's a whole conspiracy happening here. And they want to build the Third Temple, which means they have to get rid of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or they're going to have to kill some animals next to the mosque.
We will get the permission from God and from the people to make the ceremony. And then we can be pure. And again, the meaning to be pure, first of all, is the meaning that we allow to get inside to the temple. Even today, there is a lot of Jewish people that visit in the Temple Mount. They don't get inside to the area of the temple. They just visit outside of this area. At the moment that we have the option to be pure, we can get inside. So everybody here asking me, so you're going to blow the Dome of the Rock? The answer is no. I'm going to wait. 8 years ago, sorry that I'm saying here, Jim. 8 years ago, nobody believed, I don't want to say nobody, but most of the people didn't believe that Christian can be friend with Jewish. I don't know what will be happen, but I believe that God, the house of God, is house of all the nation. I believe that the Muslim will come to us and say, please, take off the Dome of the Rock and build your temple. Because, the Dome of the Rock is actually the point exactly. It's called the rock because this is the rock that all the world established from. This is the holy of the holy place. And this is the place that we will build the temple.
Either way, regardless of one of these two options that they choose, they're going to incite the Muslims to violence. And if, Al-Aqsa Mosque is one of the most holiest sites in all of Islam. You start killing cows near the mosque, or if you tear down the Al-Aqsa Mosque, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be an ocean of bloodshed in Judea, in Jerusalem. There's going to be an ocean of bloodshed. And these evangelicals don't give a damn. Arabs will be killed. Jews will be killed also. These evangelicals don't give a damn. because for them, it's all worth it because it will usher in the second coming of Christ. So they want to do not only animal sacrifice, they want to do human sacrifice to usher in the apocalypse. How evil can you be? And they claim we love the Jewish people. No, you don't, because you want to see Jews getting killed just so that your utopia can be fulfilled. You guys are evil. Utterly sinister, demonic, evil people. And let's go back to this whole thing, this whole situation in Gaza where you have famine. Because as I've already said, there is a collaboration between the evangelical Zionists and the Jewish hardliners. And the Knesset member who was at this event is connected to Mr. Smotrich. Smotrich is in favor of starving the Gazans.
האם הייתי רוצה להימנע בכלל מהצורך להכניס גרגר לרצועת עזה? גם לא לאזרחים? יכול להיות. אנחנו מפרקים את עזה ומשאירים אותה כאויי חרבות עם הרס מוחלט וחסר תקדים בעולם, והעולם עוד לא עוצר אותנו. מינימום נדרש שיגיע לאוכלוסייה, פשוט כדי שהעולם לא יעצור אותנו ויאשים אותנו בפשעי מלחמה. במשך 1.5 חודשים לא הכנסנו סיוע הומניטרי לרצועת עזה. מה שייכנס בימים הקרובים זה מעט שבמעט. אזרחים בעזה יקבלו פיתה וצלחת אוכל וזהו. זה בדיוק מה שאנחנו רואים בסרטונים, אנשים עומדים בתור ומחכים שכן ימזגו להם לצלחת, איזה צלחת מרק. האמת היא שעד שאחרון החטופים חוזר, גם מים אנחנו לא צריכים לתת לרצועת עזה.
And he recently said that the only thing that the Palestinians in Gaza should be allowed is just a little bowl of soup and a piece of pita bread. Just enough to keep people alive, but still in a state of starvation. And he said, if it was up to me, I wouldn't allow a drop of water to enter Gaza. So he wants to just starve and thirst people to death. These are the people who Christian Zionists don't mind collaborating with. And these Christian Zionists, these evangelical types, they are always the first ones to try to come across as loving, loving, Jesus plus nothing, Jesus loves you. We gotta love Israel, we gotta love these people, gotta love them. But no love for the Palestinians. Nope. No love for the Palestinians, because these people, these people are not of the spirit of God. They're not. They are of the spirit of Antichrist. Because if you have a third temple and you're killing this red heifer, the Jews who would be doing this ritual would be doing so in the name of their Messiah. And at this event that was done by the Gathering for Prayer and repentance. There's no repentance here, I assure you of that. This rabbi by the name of Itzhak Mamo spoke, and he talked about this third temple, and believe it or not, you have members of Congress. We have members of Congress involved in this cult. Isn't that just creepy and sick? But this rabbi said that according to Maimonides, one of the big thinkers of Judaism, the last red heifer will be sacrificed, the 10th, as he specified, the 10th and last red heifer, or the 10th red heifer, will be sacrificed by the Messiah.
Okay, let me bring up the picture now. Let's bring up the picture of the Red Heifer Bridge. The Red Heifer Bridge, which there's no archaeological evidence of its existence because it was probably wood, but they built it each time that they had a Red Heifer ceremony to bring it across. How many, is it believed, Red Heifer ceremonies have taken place, and what one, the last one was 2,200 years ago, and what is this one in numerical sequence?
The Maimonides, a big rabbi who lived 700 years ago, he wrote that there was 9 red heifer. The first one was made by Moses, the second made by King Solomon, and another 7 made at the Second Temple time, 2,000 years ago, as you mentioned. And then the Maimonides write, the 10th will be done by the Messiah. So I believe that we are in the days of the Messiah. I mean, you have to be blind not to see the Messiah.
Well, which Messiah is this going to be? The second coming of Christ? No, no, no. This is going to be a Jewish Messiah. This is going to be, if they build this third temple and they have their Messiah, and this Messiah is going to kill a red heifer, This is not going to be Jesus, because Jesus is not going to sacrifice animals, because Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice. The sacrificing of animals were simply just a foreshadowing of the fulfillment. So why are we following the foreshadowing of the fulfillment? We should be following the fulfillment. Anyway, this Messiah is not going to be Jesus. This Messiah is going to be a Messiah who the hardliners in Israel are going to worship and revere and follow. This is going to be an Antichrist. I'm not sure if it's going to be the Antichrist, but it's going to be definitely an Antichrist. And Christians, you have people who are claiming to be followers of Christ, wanting to usher in the rise of an Antichrist. And so these are the people that these evangelical Zionists don't mind collaborating with. That's who they don't mind collaborating with. And you see all this thing about going back to sacrificing animals. Do you know what this really is? This is about leaving Abraham, forsaking Abraham, and following Levi. I've talked about this numerous times, but I'll just mention it here. When Christ came, Christ said, listen, this priesthood of Levi is done. It's no more, because a new priesthood is here. And he told the Pharisees, he said, you guys follow the temple, but I tell you right here that something greater than the temple is here. And he said, do you not know what it says in the scripture? I demand mercy and not sacrifice. And he was quoting Hosea 6. And do you know what Hosea 6 says? It says, and the priests are wicked and they murder on their way to Shechem. And in that same chapter, Hosea 6, God says, I demand mercy and not sacrifice. What happened in Shechem? Go to Genesis, the book of Genesis. What does it say? It speaks of Levi committing a genocide of Canaanites in the city of Shechem. And from which of the patriarchs did the Jewish priesthood come from? Levi. The entire priesthood came from the loins of a murderer, a mass murderer. And this crime, this massacre of the Canaanites of Shechem was so horrendous, it was so great, that Levi's own father, Jacob, as Jacob was lying on his deathbed, he said, Levi, you are a mass murderer. Let not my soul enter into your company. So Levi was evil, but yet God chose his line to be the line of the priests. God chose Levi to be the patriarch of the priests. Why would he choose a mass murderer to be the patriarch of the Jewish priesthood? Because God knew that the Jewish priesthood, the Levitical priesthood, was going to be no more, and that it was going to be replaced by another priesthood known as the priesthood of Melchizedek. Melchizedek was a Canaanite. And who did Levi murder? Canaanites. And so God has a sense of humor. He says, okay, Levi, I'm going to choose your line to be the line of the priesthood. I'm going to choose your posterity to be the posterity of the priesthood. But your priesthood is going to be replaced by a Canaanite priesthood. In fact, the Messiah of Israel will be of the priesthood not of Levi, who was a mass murderer, but of a Canaanite named Melchizedek. And that's why it says in the book of Psalms, you are of the priesthood of Melchizedek forever. It is an eternal priesthood that lasts forever. And so Jesus came to Israel and he said, your priesthood, your Levitical priesthood, is nigh. It's coming to an end. Its end is nigh. And that's why they wanted to kill him. And that's why they did kill him, because he was a threat to their not ecclesiastical, but a threat to their priestly power and authority. And so what does St. Paul tell us? He says, well, we follow Abraham. We are sons of Abraham. Why are we sons of Abraham? Why are the sons of Abraham the ones who follow Christ and not just the ones who have the genetics of Abraham? Because the ones who follow Abraham followed the priesthood that Abraham followed, and that is the priesthood of Melchizedek. Because if you go back to the book of Genesis, the priest Melchizedek gives an offering of bread and wine, and Abraham embraces this sacrifice because he was a member of the congregation of Melchizedek. And so being followers of Abraham means you follow the priesthood of Melchizedek, and that means you follow Christ, because Christ is of the priesthood of Melchizedek, the priesthood of mercy and not murder. And so what does this mean when they say, well, we have to go back and sacrifice animals? What they are saying is that we have to go back to Levi, a murderer. And by going back to Levi, we follow in the footsteps of Levi, which is covered in blood. And that is why the evangelicals will cover up for Israel's crimes. And that is why Israeli Jewish extremists will cover up and support mass murder, because they are not sons of Abraham. They are sons of Levi. You could say, well, no, they're sons of Abraham because they have the genetics of Abraham. Okay. And what does Jesus tell the Jews in John chapter 8? The Jews who want to kill him. He says, if you were truly sons of Abraham, you wouldn't be trying to kill me, because a true son of Abraham would follow me. And what does St. Paul say? Those who are of Abraham's seed are the ones who follow Christ, because Abraham's seed is Christ. And what did God tell Abraham? God said, through your seed, all of the nations of the earth will be blessed. That seed is Christ. But amazingly, the Christians, the false Christians who follow a false Christ and who really are members of the synagogue of Satan, they will use that verse in Genesis where God tells Abraham, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, as a way to justify following or supporting Israel indiscriminately. Well, it says it right there. Yeah, it also says that Abraham's seed will bless the entire earth. And who was that seed? Who is that seed? According to St. Paul, that seed is Christ. It says here in this article, the starvation is everywhere. It's everyone, says Dr. Travis Mellon, an anesthesiologist from the United States who is currently working as a volunteer in Nasser Hospital. When I put someone to sleep for surgery, this is very apparent as they are naked and asleep. It is easy to count ribs. From across the room, you can see a clear pelvic bone. Peripheral blood vessels are very visible, as is the small amount of muscle left, as there is no longer fat obscuring these structures. I was in Gaza also a year ago, and all the people I met now were dramatically thinner, almost unrecognizable. We are now very late in this process. Back at Nasser, we see Asil Hamad, who, when born 3 months ago, weighed 3.5 kilos, 7.7 pounds. Since then, she has only gained 400 grams, 14 ounces. Hamad was not diagnosed with an illness. From her mother's account, the reason for her low weight is clear. I had tried to breastfeed, but I was also starving. Al-Fada asks the hospital worker accompanying him to point the camera at little Asil. Her gauntness is undeniable. Her eyes look large relative to her face. Her skin is yellow and her head is covered with scraggly hair dotted with bald spots. The doctor shows us the protruding ribs, the spindly legs, and bloated stomach under the baby's clothes. She's also suffering from an acute skin inflammation. Large red, almost blood-colored splotches cover her body. Al-Fada explains that the latter condition is due to diarrhea caused by malnutrition. And you have these evil people online who will say, oh, these kids, they just have pre-existing diseases. The condition is starvation. That's the condition. That's the pre-existing condition here. In the bed opposite lies a redhead baby named Amr Isa al-Masri, except that Amr is not really a redhead, as in many cases we've seen hunger altered his original hair color. He was born 5 months ago, weighing 4.6 kilos, an above average size. He now weighs a mere 4 kilos. Amr is lying simply on his hospital bed, eyes open but totally indifferent to what is going on around him. His limbs are tiny. It seems he's not capable of moving them. His mother tells Al-Fada that she tried to breastfeed him, but didn't have enough milk. When formula became too expensive, she started to feed him starch dissolved in water. It does have calories, says Dr. Michael Feldon, a senior Israeli pediatrician. But aside from that, zero nutrition. It has nothing, no vitamins, no proteins, nothing. It's impossible to recover from 5 months of a shortage of food at that age. Children who undergo a thing like that, their brain is finished. Even those who survive will suffer from severe retardation. There is evil being done to Gaza that the people of Gaza will never recover from. And you have this Israeli doctor, Michael Feldon, who's exposing this evil, and Huckabee, who comes in the name of Christ, covers up for these crimes. This Israeli doctor is more of a Christian than these people. Lying in a bed under a large painting of Maya the bee is Sham Qadi, a tiny child in a horrible state. She's 2 years old and weighs only 4.4 kilos. Sham was born a short time before the war broke out as a normal weight. Now her abdomen is bloated. Her matchstick legs are crooked. Her bones are sticking out. Her skull is visible under the skin. Her eyes are glazed over and her teeth have fallen out. She has the face of an elderly person. Al-Fada recounts that Sham's father told him they hadn't been able to find any milk substitute for her. As you can see, she is in a miserable situation, the doctor says. She's always crying. She's always suffering. Sham is suffering from a metabolic illness that affects her digestive tract, but according to Dr. Feldon, a case of acute deterioration like this attests to a severe lack of food. In Israel, too, there are various illnesses, but we never see children in this condition. There is nothing even resembling it. So they will say, oh, these are just pre-existing conditions. This Israeli doctor, who's not a liar, unlike these freaking evil people, says, we have all sorts of illnesses in Israel. We don't see anything like this in Israel because people are not starving in Israel. Another patient in the ward is Hamid, a 14-year-old boy who now weighs 30 kilos. You know what 30 kilos is? That's around 60 pounds. I'm not a metrics measurement enjoyer, but I know 30 kilos is basically just, in pounds, it's double in pounds, from what I understand. So a kilo is 2-point-something pounds. It's 60-something pounds. A 14-year-old, 60-something pounds. That's starvation. He has no pre-existing conditions. We also see Ayad, who's 16. During one of his attempts to get his hands on food at a distribution center run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, he was shot. A routine occurrence around GHF sites. Formerly considered healthy, he's suffering from malnutrition and his bones are protruding. So this guy tried to get food at one of the American-Israeli food distribution sites, one of the 4, I should add, aid distribution centers, and he got shot. So they say, well, we have distribution centers, just come and get food. Oh yes, come and get shot. This is like when the Germans told the Jews, come for a shower, and they got killed. I want this nightmare to end. And I have no power over this, but I read these stories, I look at the news almost at a daily basis, and it's just, my mind can't take this. I feel pain when I'm reading this. I was reading this article to prepare for this video, and I was feeling pain, mental pain, as I was reading this. Later during our virtual tour, we are introduced to Othman, who was also shot at an aid distribution center and is paralyzed on his right side, as well as suffering from a serious head wound. His body, too, has been racked by severe acute malnutrition. And you see this guy here, he looks like he came out of Auschwitz. But it's not the German Auschwitz, it's the Israeli Zionist Auschwitz. It's the hardliner Auschwitz. It's the Smotrich Auschwitz. It's the Third Temple Auschwitz. And here's another doctor, Dr. Travis Mellon. It's easy to count ribs from across the room. You can see a clear pelvic bone. Peripheral blood vessels are visible, as is the small amount of muscle left, as there is no fat obscuring these structures. I mean, and we can go on and on and on. There's so many other stories in this article, and I could go on, but it's just the same thing. Misery, evil, starvation, murder. It just goes on and on and on. And we have Christians who are saying Israel is good because they don't follow Jesus. They follow Levi, a mass murderer. And they follow in Levi's footsteps. That's the bottom line. They follow the spirit of Levi and not the spirit of Abraham. Abraham, who asked God, if there is just 10 innocent people in Sodom, would you spare Sodom? And God the Son, because God came in the form of a man in this story, so it was really Christ. Abraham was talking to Christ. Christ told Abraham, if there are 10 innocent people in Sodom, I will spare Sodom. These people don't follow Abraham. They follow Levi, who butchered all of the males of the city of Shechem and was very proud of it. And you have these hardliners in Israel who will say, let's kill the Palestinians just as Levi murdered the Shechemites. They are following Levi. And they're doing already their plans to get rid of the Palestinians in the West Bank. Israel has already announced that they're going to be building all of these settlements, even more settlements, tens of thousands of settlement homes in the West Bank. And this is going to further drive Palestinians out of their homes. And really, the end goal is to get rid of all the Palestinians. That's the end goal. But we're supposed to support this because, according to Ted Cruz and Huckabee and Schmuckabee and all these evil kafirs, and I call them kafirs because these are the people who are waiting for the red heifer. So they don't worship Jesus, they worship a calf. Just like the Israelites worship the golden calf. I call them kafirs, which is sort of a play on words here because the Muslims call non-Muslims kafirs. I'm going to call these people kafirs. According to these kafirs, we have to support Israel no matter what, even when they're committing genocide. And when they're committing genocide, we have to cover up for them. When does the evil end? When does it end? Anyway, guys, you just heard some Theology. God bless.